All right, everybody, let's find our seats, please. All right, so today we have two wonderful speakers here for us today. So we have Professor Dopheide here. She's awesome. And we also have Giffey, who is also awesome. So make sure you're paying attention and give them their full, undivided attention.
Thank you, Will. Thanks. Thank you, Will. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Before we get started, I just want to remind you, since this is not quite in your normal rhythm, to please make sure your phones are put away and you don't have earbuds in. We will ask you to use your phones later, so you don't need to turn them off, but make sure that they're on silent, please. Okay, so we're going to start off today with just getting a little bit of a sense of where you actually stand with your ideas and understanding of academic integrity. So in order to do that, we're going to ask you just to take about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes to get into pairs. So sit next with somebody that you're sitting next to, work together on doing a couple of things. We're going to time you just to make sure that we're not spending too much time on these. If you happen to not be sitting next to somebody directly, turn around and you can join another group, okay? So pairs of 2 preferably, 3 if you can't find somebody immediately to your left or right. Okay, so again, what we want to know is, what do you already know? We know that you have some sense about what academic integrity is. You've heard about it in a couple of different contexts. So in pairs, for 90 seconds, discuss and write down a definition of academic integrity. After you've done that, you can go ahead and move to the second question, where in pairs, for 60 seconds, we want you to discuss and write down 3 separate examples of incidences of academic integrity, where people are violating academic integrity.
And we'd like you to use the note cards that are provided to you, and we're going to collect these, so if you could write legibly, that would be great.
Yes, please write legibly. Okay, so your first 90 seconds are up. So you might finish that thought and move on to question 2 if you haven't done so yet.
Yeah, just 1 minute. All right, thank you for talking amongst yourselves. I hope there was some good conversation. We're now going to watch a short video produced by Columbia College Library that might help enhance some of our understanding of what academic integrity means. Thank you very much. So do your part to keep things fair.
Using Powtoon.
Thank you, Powtoons. All right, did some of you have similar thoughts when you brainstormed in your group about academic integrity? So let's kind of review some of the points of the video. So academic integrity is about expressing your original ideas, and you're going to have a lot of those in college, right? You're going to be writing and thinking and analyzing and synthesizing and creating works of research to share with others. Along with your original thoughts, though, you're finding academic sources of information that are authoritative and utilizing those to help you synthesize your own ideas. And so when we have those other pieces of information, we want to make sure we cite our sources. So academic integrity is having your own thoughts, and when you utilize the thoughts of others, you give them credit. The video also talked about a college degree means something. So a college degree gives you cultural capital. It has value. That's why we're here. We think this is important in our community. So when you cheat or when you are academically dishonest, that degrades the degree that we all are here to earn, right? And lastly, college is meant to be challenging. This isn't supposed to be easy. It's supposed to stretch who we are and learn new ideas and concepts and skills. So give yourself credit. It's going to be challenging, and it may be a struggle, but that's okay. That's why we're all here together.
Okay, and so just to build on some of what Ann was saying, some other reasons why it matters, and some of these are directly linked to the previous slide. Respect and equity for our community of learners. You want people to respect you in your work, in your knowledge, what you know, all the hard work you've put into everything, okay? And you want to be able to respect your friends and the hard work that they're putting in as well. And this goes back to the idea that the college degree means something. And if you're not respecting the work others are putting in, or even the respect you're putting in for your own degree, because of academic dishonesty, again, you're devaluing everybody's work. You're devaluing your respect for other people by way of trying to do things in an easier way. Okay, so respect and equity for the community of learners is really important. And respect for your own learning. Again, learning is supposed to be difficult. It is supposed to be uncomfortable. In class, I talk about if you are not uncomfortable while you are learning, you're not actually learning anything. It is supposed to hurt. Studying is not supposed to be easy, but that's how you grow. That's how you learn. And you can't have respect for your own learning if you're not even trying to interpret and synthesize the information that you're reading through other sources and instead just trying to take those ideas. Okay, so respect the process, appreciate the process. You only have one opportunity to go through this learning experience, and you want to try to get everything out of it that you can. Also, mutual respect between faculty and students. We respect all of you, and we understand all of you have come from different backgrounds and different academic opportunities. We truly, truly want to help all of you reach your potential. We respect your efforts. We respect it when you come in our office and ask for help. You want us to look at that draft. You want us to make sure you're citing appropriately. Okay, we respect you as students and everything you are doing. You're trying so hard. And then when a student comes in or turns in a paper and we found out that it wasn't their work, that actually hurts. I mean, we are really hurt by that we have tried so hard to help you become the best you that you can become, and then you disrespect us by not even doing the work. I mean, we really take that to heart. It makes us feel like we're not doing our job well. On the same hand, you want to respect a professor who's going to call out other students who are not doing the work when you are working your butt off on trying to do well on that assignment. Okay? So it's mutual respect between the faculty and the students. That's another important part of being academically full of academic integrity. It also, if you're being academically dishonest, gives you an inflated sense of ability. Okay, so if you have been using somebody else's work or working on homework together with somebody when you know that the professor says you cannot work on homework together, you go into that exam or you're writing that final paper with a false sense of your abilities. You've been getting good grades because perhaps the professor hasn't noticed you haven't been doing your own work yet. You go in with a false sense of confidence, thinking you're going to ace the class or at least pass the class. And then you realize at the last minute that you really have no idea what's going on. So you can actually trick yourself into thinking that you know more than you know when you're getting good marks and good feedback on stuff that wasn't even yours in the first place. Okay? So you don't want to give yourself a false sense of ability because then you're not actually doing the work you need to do to actually achieve that ability. So that's another reason. And then finally, there is a correlation between frequency of cheating in college and workplace dishonesty. Okay, and employers know this. And so when they call and ask us about what kind of person you are, when they actually ask us to write letters of recommendation and you've been dishonest in our class, we have to be honest. Even if we think you are the best person and we've really enjoyed getting to know you, we like you as an individual, we have to uphold the integrity of the institution, our own integrity, and the value of the college degree, and we have to be honest. Okay, so employers will make assumptions about you as an individual if you are not being honest during your college career.
All right, so let's bring it home to Monmouth College. This is our statement of academic honesty here at Monmouth College. And this can be found on the website. You can search it on the website. It's on MyMC as well. And so I just want to read this out loud because this is something we're all agreeing to by being a part of the Monmouth College community. So we believe that academic honesty is of the utmost importance for the maintenance and growth of our intellectual community. Our students are encouraged to think of the campus as an educational community with ties to local, national, and global society. Honesty in one's academic work is of the utmost importance for the maintenance and growth of the individual and of our intellectual community. We therefore require all our students to contribute to this community of learners and to make a vigorous commitment to academic honesty. It is each student's responsibility to read and understand and comply with the general academic honesty policy at Monmouth as defined here in the Scott's Guide and any specific guidelines in your particular course. So when I look at this, there are certain words that jump out at me. This mentions academic honesty several times, right? But it also mentions the word community. And we've already mentioned how being academically honest is important to the Monmouth College community. We're all in it together, whether we're students, faculty, or staff. So think of it that way. We are a community, and these are our guidelines that we've agreed to.
I can't see behind me, so hang on a second. Okay, so I just wanted to add a little bit in regards to types of academic dishonesty, and we asked you to think about this on your own at the very beginning. And I hope you're realizing that so far what we are doing is we're making sure you understand what it is, where to find the policy, and thinking about why it's important. We're trying very hard not to sit here and say, don't cheat, it's bad, and if you do, you'll get in trouble. Because we understand there's a lot of circumstances that might cause somebody in a state of distress or anxiety to make really bad decisions, okay? And so we're gonna talk through some of the different types of academic dishonesty, and then we're gonna talk through a little bit about how we can actually avoid falling into this trap. So plagiarism is going to come up here in a little bit. In a future slide, we're going to talk about citing, okay? But plagiarism is essentially taking somebody's work and claiming it as your own, okay? That could be copying verbatim from a friend's homework assignment, or copying verbatim from a website, or a video on the internet, okay? Or maybe a journal article or a textbook. Even copying verbatim from a professor's PowerPoint slides could be considered plagiarism. That was their language, their words. Okay, so being very careful not to do that. Cheating in general is also considered academic dishonesty. Even if you yourself did not take somebody else's work, but you let them copy your answers on an exam, you knew they were doing it and you didn't adjust your position, or you didn't put your hands in front of your answers so they couldn't view it, offering another student your work because I just don't know how to get started on that assignment, okay, even if you are helping somebody, that is actually considered cheating as well, okay? So both the person who is helping and the cheater can get in trouble for that. So a few instances of this can also be using online resources or your classmates without permission, okay? So for example, if you're taking an online quiz or an exam, if you're doing this on Moodle, let's say, okay, you don't print up your answers and then give your answers to somebody else and let them use your answers to ace the quiz. All right, so that would be an example of that. Sharing exam or quiz questions with somebody who hasn't taken it. And oftentimes we see this happen with test files. You're part of an organization, and some of the individuals in your organization have saved their tests from previous semesters. You open up that file, you grab the exam, and you use that to study for the exam that you have coming up. That is academically dishonest. You're giving yourself an unfair advantage of others, okay? We also have just generally falsifying information. Sometimes this can be something as simple as signing in someone else's name when they're not in attendance because there's an attendance policy in your class. That's dishonest as well. Making your work look like more. Faculty are onto some of these techniques. Some of what we've seen is increasing your margins, okay? We know what a one-inch margin is supposed to look like. We've been doing it for 30 years, okay? Making your margins wider than they should be. Increasing the font size, even by 0.5 point. My favorite is people increasing just the font size of the punctuation, thinking we don't know how big a 12 Times New Roman font period should be, okay? Actually adding white nonsense to the bottom of a paper. And some of you might be aware of this trick, okay? So you have a word count for your paper, and you think, I haven't met the word count, I'm gonna type a bunch of jibber-jabber on the bottom, turn it white. When the professor gets it, it's going to be part of the word count. They'll be none the wiser. We know how many pages a particular word count should be, okay? So we'll figure that out. But all of these ways are ways in which people might falsify their work. And again, it's giving you an unfair advantage, okay? Faking results in a science lab. If you're in the sciences, I'm sure you've talked about the ethics of not falsifying data. Has huge implications, not just for your academic career, but your potential future career. Reporting illness or the death or illness of a loved one to move a deadline. Okay, so that would be another instance. And then finally, claiming the work of somebody else as your own. This goes back to making sure that you're citing things appropriately.
So on that note, I have an example of a reading from your ILA reader. You guys recognize that? Maybe you've read it already. So I just want to show you how this particular, these two scholars cited work within their own as an example of how we cite properly, okay? So in this example, there's in-text citations. You can see that the authors cited their source of information using dates, pages, the names. They also then put the full citation of that source in their references or their works cited. So scholars and professors and colleagues who read your research can go to your references page and follow up on any resources that they're interested in. They can see the scholars that you utilized in your own paper. We also put quotations around direct quotes. So if you do directly quote a professor's lecture notes or a lecture, you do want to cite the professor, and you would put quotes around anything that's directly verbatim from a professor or another scholarly source. And then lastly, another way to cite your source is to paraphrase the source. That would be to summarize it in your own words, but knowing that that original idea is not your own, so you're going to give credit to that other source. Okay, so you can see in this example the words "as Erickson saw it" or "Erickson believed." So that's the scholar that this piece of information is citing and giving reference to. Now, this particular citation source and citation style might be different than what you're asked to do depending on the class you're in or the discipline that you're studying. So don't worry about the particulars of where a period or punctuation or capitalization goes. That's what your Bedford Guide is there for. And we'll talk about the Bedford Guide a little bit later. But this is just an example of what we're talking about when we say cite your sources to avoid plagiarism and to give respect to our Monmouth community. Have your ideas, and when you synthesize the ideas of others, you give them credit.
Okay, so again, I mentioned that we don't want this to necessarily be a lecture on why you shouldn't cheat. I think it's more important for you to think about what are the traps you might fall into that might cause you to cheat. If you know about these in advance, then you can actually be proactive in avoiding these situations. And I'll tell you a little story. This is a little bit of a digression, but you might enjoy it. Some of us have actually cheated in our lives. When I was in second grade, going through First Communion as a nice Catholic schoolgirl, I had to learn the 10 Commandments, okay? Lucky for me, as one of my communion gifts, I got a beautiful trinket bracelet, and each trinket had one of the commandments on it. I wasn't prepared for the test, so I wore my pretty bracelet into class that day, got 100% on the 10 Commandments test. And I felt guilty about it for my entire life. And 2 years ago, the dean of the faculty asked me to become the associate dean of academic integrity. If any of you remember David Timmerman, I guess you don't remember David Timmerman, but he actually was in seminary. He was a very religious individual. And I shared with him that story. And we decided that my penance would be to share with all of you how to avoid ways of actually cheating as a way of kind of letting me get past that guilt that I had from cheating in the second grade. So we've all made mistakes. We're human. We do things under states of duress. But some of the reasons that might resonate with you for why you might fall into the trap is one, it's a mashup sampling culture. You think about some of the music that's out there right now, and you hear some of the music where they're sampling from other songs. They're sampling from poems. They're sampling from a lot of variety of different places, and they're actually not citing who it was that they are sampling from. And so it's a little bit a part of the culture where you sample from other people, and you don't necessarily have to give credit to them for doing so. And so you might think a little bit that it's part of the culture. There's also a lot of pressure to succeed. You have a lot of pressure on yourself. Your coaches are giving you a lot of pressure. Your significant others might be pressuring you. Okay, maybe you feel like they're academically stronger than you and you feel like you need to be able to keep up. There's a lot of stakes that come from your parents, right? A lot of high stakes come from them. They want to make sure you're doing well and that you're succeeding, especially if you're here on some sort of scholarship. So there's a lot of pressure from them. And then, of course, you're definitely aware of the time pressure that you're all under, right? Especially as we're moving closer to midterms. Some of those midterm exams are coming up, papers, projects. So time is always another factor that might lead you to just think, I don't have enough time, I have to turn this in. And in that state of nervousness, you make a bad decision, okay? There's also peer pressure to cheat when maybe you see other people cheating, or the person sitting next to you is a friend of yours, or a sorority sister, a fraternity brother, or somebody on your team, and you know that they might get put on probation if they don't do well on that exam, and you really like this person. So they might pressure you to letting them see your answers on that exam. Or you might feel pressured because you feel like other people are doing it, and you need to do it because they're screwing up the curve, right? If you have people cheating off of each other, they're going to ace the exam, and then the curve is totally blown, so you might as well cheat too. So a lot of pressure in that regard. I think one of the primary things I see when students come in my office because they have been reported to me for academic dishonesty is that they don't even understand what constitutes dishonesty. They don't realize that if they're borrowing from a YouTube video or if they're borrowing from something online, that that's actually academically dishonest. They don't understand how to cite appropriately, and they haven't thought to go in and ask their professor whether or not they're doing it correctly. So sometimes it's just a matter of clarifying what's expected and asking somebody to double check for you. Another is lack of knowledge about institutional policies. We've already talked about this. We have the Scott's Guide that has all of that information available. I think every professor puts it on their syllabus in some form. So lack of knowledge of institutional policies is sometimes a reason, but it should not be a valid reason because we are of the understanding that it's in all of your syllabi. Another major reason why students will come to me and say that they've been academically dishonest in something is because they don't understand the material and they're afraid to admit it. They're afraid to admit it to themselves because maybe they are pre-med and they're in Bio 150. And if they're going to be a doctor, they have to do well in this class. And if they don't do well in this class, that might mean they can't be a doctor. Okay? That might mean that they have to take it again, and then they're going to be behind. So all of these nervous fears come to mind when you realize that you might not know the material as well as you should. And so in order to, again, meet the expectations of yourself, your family, your professors, whoever it might be, you find yourself just using the material from somewhere else. Okay? Sometimes it's also just thinking that the assignment is busy work, and if it's not meaningful, why not work together with somebody else on it? We see that often as well. And sometimes that's our fault. We think we are being explicit and being very clear in why an assignment is important. But if we're not, then you're just going to think it's busy work, okay? So don't be afraid. If you feel like something's busy work, just ask. So how does this relate to the class? What are we supposed to be getting out of this assignment? Okay, so that'll help you kind of clarify the meaningfulness behind a particular assignment that you might otherwise be tempted to be dishonest on. Another reason sometimes students are academically dishonest is because they were in the past and they didn't get caught. And I have been known as a professor to do this, to recognize this. A student that I previously had in class suddenly has exponentially improved their writing on their writing assignments or their exam grades, and now they're taking a harder course with me. And so I'll wonder about it. I don't have proof, but I'll write a note to them. It's so great to see how much you've improved over the last semester. I'm looking forward to seeing more work like this from you now. Okay? And it's maybe a passive-aggressive way of kind of letting them know that I'm on to them. But if you're cheating and not getting caught, then the professor expects you to keep doing well, and so all you're doing is causing yourself to get stuck in this cycle of having to continue to do so in order to keep the grade up high and for the professor to still think that you're a really strong, stellar student. There are cultural differences. Some cultures actually do not cite other people because to claim their work as your own is almost a form of flattery. There's cultural differences in terms of what you need to be citing, how you need to cite, whether working together is considered dishonest or not. If you're not sure about these cultural differences, then you can definitely talk to your professors or talk to me about that. And then finally, another reason I've had people explain to me about why they're academically dishonest is simply they couldn't understand their own notes. Okay, they were in a hurry while they were in class taking notes, they wrote sloppily, they were in a rush, and then they went back to use them for something and they had no idea what they wrote. So simply taking the time with your work in the classroom can make you do better when you have to apply that work to a particular assignment or study for an exam. So as we're talking about this, again, these are all reasons that we see for why students are academically dishonest. And the goal behind this convocation today is to try to help you, again, be proactive in avoiding these situations. Thinking ahead about, okay, how can I not get myself in this situation where I feel uncomfortable with the content? Maybe I need to see the tutor or supplementary instruction or visit the professor's office hours, work with other students in the class. We want you to think about proactive ways so you're never in the situation where you are tempted. And when people are in the situation where they're tempted, they're actually in what we call the fear zone. Okay, and you might have seen some stuff about the growth mindset in a variety of different classes. Of course, in the comfort zone, we feel very safe and in control. Thinking about this in terms of the classroom, you're familiar with the information, you already took a class on this in high school, so you're pretty comfortable with it. And comfortable is good, but we need to move beyond that if we're going to grow as individuals. We already talked about how learning is uncomfortable, it just has to be. But typically people who are not being honest with their work are doing so out of fear. They're in the fear zone. They lack the self-confidence, I already mentioned that. They're finding excuses for not getting the work done, or they're finding excuses for why they can use somebody else's work as their own, whether that be peer pressure, parental pressure, self-pressure, whatever. Okay, and they're also affected by others' opinions. Okay, you're worried about what your fraternity brothers or sorority sisters or other organizations that you're in are going to say or think if you're not doing as well as you think you should be. Okay? Fear motivates us to make bad decisions. We're thinking with our fear part of our brain rather than the frontal lobe part of our brain, which is developing in all of you right now. You're able to make well thought out decisions now if you just stop, take a deep breath, and let that part of your brain do its work. So the goal here is to help you think about ways that you can move from the fear zone into the learning zone. Some of you are already here. Okay, I'm assuming that many of you are already here, and the idea of cheating is just laughable to you. And I hope that's many of you. But when you're in the learning zone, you're willing to actually make mistakes in order to acquire new skills. You're willing to take that constructive feedback, even if it's on a D paper, because you know it will make you a better student and better in your future career. You're going to be able to deal with the challenges and the problems of time management, of trying to struggle through those difficult assignments or those difficult papers. So we want to move you from the fear zone, if you are there, into the learning zone. And of course, from there, you're going to be moving into the growth zone. And that's where you will be able to find purpose through your work, be able to find purpose through the applications of those things you're learning. Okay, so the whole goal here is, again, not to lecture you, it's to actually help you think, how can I move from a state of fear, if you're there, into a state of wanting to learn, even though sometimes that's uncomfortable, so that you can grow as an individual.
All right, so how can we start to move from that fear to learning and growth? So there's lots of resources on campus, and you probably know about most of these, but we're going to remind you of the experts that are here on campus that can help you do the learning and do the work. So the first expert is your Bedford Handbook. Did you guys bring that today? I'd like to do a quick exercise. If you can pull that out. Maybe share a copy with your neighbor. Share with your neighbor. I see some Post-it notes in some copies, which is great. All right, I want you to turn it to its side so you're looking at the spine, the pages. Do you see some color coding there? All right. We talked about citation styles. The Bedford can help you with citing sources. It can give you all of the insight into how to cite sources within your prose and how to create that bibliography at the end. So, what citation source is that orange color? I hear an MLA. Okay, Modern Language Association. You might use those in language and literature courses. All right? What citation style is the green? American Psychological Association. Her favorite. All right, what about the purple? Chicago. And they don't just use this in Chicago. It's for social sciences, some humanities. So we don't expect you to memorize. It's like learning a language. But you do have to try and know that there are resources in the Bedford to help you make an effort to do the citation correctly to avoid plagiarism. And when you have questions beyond the Bedford, here are some other resources for you. So librarians, like myself, you may have seen one or more of us hanging out in Hughes Library. We're there to help you. Bring in your bibliography if you have a question. As long as you've made an effort, we'll help you proofread it. All right? The Writing Center. Do we know Mellinger? The third floor of Mellinger is where the writing tutors hang out. They're there Sunday through Thursday. And sometimes you may have already visited them. Sunday through Thursday, 7 to 10 p.m. And Monday through Thursday, 3 to 5 p.m. You can find this information on the Monmouth website, or take a trip, a field trip over to Mellinger, walk up to the third floor, and you'll see all sorts of good information from the writing tutors. And by the way, the writing tutors are your peers, okay? They're students just like you. Faculty. They don't always go around with fancy regalia like this, but you know who the faculty are. You know who's teaching your class, and they can be an invaluable resource if you have questions about how to cite, what citation style to use. They're there to help you learn, so please ask those questions and engage with them. Many of you have already seen the ACE over in Hughes Library. There are 4 offices in the ACE, and one of most helpful, potentially, when we're citing sources and being academically honest, is the Student Success and Accessibility Services, or the Student Success Office for short. They are involved with helping students succeed with accommodations, with study tips. They also coordinate peer tutors for different classes and disciplines. So if you're interested, on the Monmouth website, search for Student Success, and you'll see a schedule of when those peer tutors are available for psychology, for modern languages, all right? So take advantage of talking with a peer about the question you might have. And lastly, that growth mindset, right? It takes practice. We talked about learning is hard. Learning challenges us and stretches us. And just like anything else that you're learning, whether it's a perfect dribble or three-pointer, it takes practice, okay? Working together in our community to be academically honest takes work, and it takes the abilities of all of us to be honest together in our community. All right, so think about that. Practice, practice, practice. All right, we're going to try something that maybe you haven't done or been encouraged to do. I'm going to ask you to pull out your cell phone. It's not a trick. It's okay if you didn't bring it. I totally understand. But we're going to try to take a poll, a live action poll here. All right, go to your texting feature. All right, this is how this works. You're going to open a new chat, new text, and you're going to go to the phone number 37607, and you're going to text the word Monmouth to start. Doesn't have to be capitalized. Then you're going to get a message back saying, okay, you've been entered into this group. Everyone there yet? So text to the number 37607, the word Monmouth. All right, now you're active, you're live. I want you to think about this question. In a few words, describe what you will do to practice academic honesty. And text that.
No yos. The first three were fantastic. Go to the library more, writing center. You do know that we know what phone numbers these are coming from, right?
All right, study, do my homework, don't cheat. Using some of those resources, the writing center. What other resources did we?
Ooh, check my bibliography, nice. Way to mix it up. Duh. You know, I like that one too. Aww, I like that.
That's a goal. Shout out to the ace, good.
So I will repeat that we actually know what phone numbers these are coming from. So if you're not being serious, you know, I am the Associate Dean of Academic Integrity. So I encourage you to write a legitimate response if you've been writing jokes.
Office hours. Learn to cite, put in the work. All right. Ooh, emoji. All right, I think we've got some good. God. All right.
All right.
I think we've done a good job. Good review.
Many of you offered really excellent ideas, and we appreciate those of you who took it seriously and provided some good feedback on that. So thank you. Okay, so as we are wrapping up, it is almost 1:45. So we have one more question for you. Again, in pairs with your index cards, we want you to discuss one important take-home message from today. Make this different than what you responded with on the poll. After you have done so, write your complete name and your ILA instructor next to your own answer, because everyone in each group should have an answer to this question as evidence of attending today's convocation. We will collate the information, and we will also pass these cards on to your ILA instructors. After you are done, you do not need to stick around. You can share your cards with your ILA mentors, and some of them, I think, are standing outside to collect them in the boxes. We anticipate it'll take a couple, maybe 30 seconds at least, to answer this. And thank you very much for your attention today.